thriving practice in investment advising for over 23 years. Due to her relentless dedication and diligence, Jo received some of the most prestigious third-party endorsements from both Barron's, which is a very highly acclaimed magazine, and Forbes magazines. Now, I'm going to tell you just a few of them, and for those of you that aren't familiar with Barron's and Forbes, when you're in a profession and there are magazines of the highest ranking that recognize you, it's a big deal. So let me tell you some of the recognition that Jo has received. Barron's 2007 to 2008 is one of the top 100 women financial advisors. That's a very small group in a very big pond. Barron's 2009 is one of the top 1,000 financial advisors. South Florida Business Journal 2009 is one of the top 25 South Florida advisors. Forbes 2017 and 2018 top 200 women wealth advisors. Forbes 2018 and 2019 best in state wealth advisors. And fresh off the press as of yesterday, Jo and her business partner Cindy Katz-Morton, who is also with us here today, are once again named by Forbes as two of the top 250 women wealth managers in the country. You know what? This is a really big deal, and we are so lucky that Jo is with us today. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to the women of tomorrow.
Thank you for all the accolades. And I know in the absence of time, I'm actually very, very happy that I typed up what I wanted to speak today. So this way I don't become a rambling rose and go on and off. So this way we can get you out of here in time. But I want to thank you all for joining Women of Tomorrow's session today. And my special thanks to Lori Silvers, who have always supported you and mentoring you for many, many years. As we all know, Women of Tomorrow has always been helping young women like yourselves and been changing the world in many, many ways. Just to name a few, I want you to know our organization actually has been creating pathways for you girls out of poverty. In addition to that, we have also prevented some high school dropouts, and those numbers hopefully will speak for itself when you get the data from Colleen and Women of Tomorrow. We have been increasing access in higher education, and I believe that professional women like Lori Silvers and myself coming together actually help build our community's workforce. So good morning, everybody. My name is Jo Kaufman. I'm actually an executive director and financial advisor for Morgan Stanley. I have been with the firm for over 23 years. What you can expect from me today is actually talk to you about the aspects of my career as a woman in a very male-dominated industry. I will share with you my humble beginnings, how I got into the business, and also why I continue to have passion for this industry and what drives me to excel every single day. My life actually started in the Philippines. I am the youngest of 9 children, and my father was fortunate enough to be able to flee China in his teens, and that's how he met my mother in the Philippines. I'm not really sure if everybody in this room has heard or has seen organizations that actually solicit for us to donate $1 a day to help young children in third world countries. In milk cartons, you actually will see some of these kids' faces looking very, lost or hungry and frail. I want you to know that I am just one of those kids. When I was born, my father had already abandoned our family, and there was always a struggle just getting 3 meals a day. So at 4 years old, my mother already considered me old enough and played a significant role along with my brothers and sisters, peddle goods, like boiled goods in the riverbanks, like potatoes, eggs, peanuts, corn. That's what we did when we were kids. We sold most of these items by the riverbanks because everybody really washed with their clothes in the riverbanks, and I would always cross this river because I always find that the ones who are washing the clothes are on the other side of the banks. The crossings always terrified me to death as a child. I would carry these goods over my head in a straw basket, and I always remember that my mother would carefully choose for me the rocks where I could step on so I won't be swallowed by this water. But there was only one mission, and that was to reach the crowd on the other side of the riverbanks. This is how I remember we were able to feed ourselves every day. It left me this insatiable desire to always take the risks, knowing the crossings will be all worth it. I do have a lot to tell you about my childhood, but not all of it today. But I had no childhood, at least the kind most of you enjoyed growing up. I never had a doll. I never had slippers to walk on when I was a child. I walked bare feet in my entire childhood that I can remember. But I knew my fate was cast the day I was born, that I really have to do something to be able to get out of this very impoverished situation, that I must save my mother and allow her to see that there is actually a light at the end of the tunnel, because growing up my whole life was all about loving my mother. I am sharing you this story because my childhood experiences proved to be actually the reasons why I am where I am today. The Philippines is actually a country where to call it third world is very, very kind. But despite all that, it is with great pride to share with you that working my entire life created for me a self-esteem where I felt no one was ever going to be able to take away from me. So in 1982, I was 25 years old, and for the very first time, I moved to a city and bravely left my mother because I wanted to explore job opportunities where they're only offered by larger cities. No one knew me in the city, and I knew no one. So for the very first time, I felt really alone, entering a different type of world and understanding about how it is to be a survivor. I found a job as a deposit gatherer for a bank. And every working day, just to prove to this bank that I was worth being employed by them, I would walk up and down the streets in the city under the heat of Philippine sun, knocking on doors in industrial parks and commercial parks. And I was very relentless and had no shame asking merchants to trust me and the bank that I worked for. So by the end of the year, the city knew all about this bank because I made the bank. I allowed myself to make sure that I can leave a mark for this bank to be known in the city. But I knew my world will be very small staying in the Philippines. So at age 26, I left. And when I left, I chose the United States of America. I did so because I was told it is the land of opportunity, and I was really thinking, if I could make it throughout my childhood, with all the adversities I went through, I believe I should be able to make it anywhere in the world. And the United States was it for me. So even though English is a very hard language to master, I managed to speak it, and of course I became a banker. I was really not afraid of it. I was very good at it. I was exceptionally good as a banker. I worked for a major regional bank, and I helped them revolutionize the way how commercial lenders and corporate lenders actually have to be compensated. I showed them that they don't really wait for the borrowers to come to the bank. I showed them that you go knock on doors at commercial and industrial parks under the heat of Florida's sun. I accepted an offer from a stockbroker to work for him to set up seminars once a month. And we did all these luncheon seminars for a lot of the retirees. By the end of the year, I was able to put together 4 seminars a month for this stockbroker. So it became an insanity, and he could hardly really deal with all the appointments I was booking for him every single day. So in 1993, at 36 years old, I decided if I could do that, then I can be my own financial advisor. So I applied as a trainee for a major wirehouse. And in that training class, there are 75 trainees. It was very frightening, I want you to know, because one day you are going to enter this world. It was very frightening because I was really up against trainees that were graduates from Yale, from Harvard, or children from very, very wealthy families. But I knew then that I was never afraid to cold call. I knew then that I was not afraid to go ahead and knock on doors, work on weekends, at nights, even on holidays. So needless to say, at the end of that at the end of financial independence, as it is one of the most empowering achievement one can ever have in their life. And from one woman to all of you here, young women in this room, in addition to good health and loving and creating loving and kind families for your future, there is absolutely no substitute for you to also be financially secure. So I will give you this advice, if nothing else resonates with you today, to start thinking about how you're actually going to secure your financial future. I want to demonstrate to you very quickly what small savings actually can do for you if you really put your heart into it until you reach your adult life. I know that we're all guilty here, and we're all very fond of going to vending machines and Starbucks, but it really isn't very hard to be able to save $1,000 a year. We're talking about under $3 a day for you to be able to save $1,000 a year. And if you do that until you graduate, and now you're 22, I'm expecting you're all 15 and 16 here in this room, you should end up with $10,000 in your bank for investments at age 22. Now you're 22 and you'll be entering the workforce just like Lori, Cindy, Colleen, myself. I want you to know there is nothing more empowering than be able to get a paycheck every single month because you really worked for it. And because you work so hard, all I'm asking from you is to think how to build your wealth, right? To think about that every single year, on average, every single year, until you're age 32, from 22 to 32, and this is rule of 72, to save $10,000 a year. And it's not hard. to save $10,000 a year. I can tell you that if you do that for yourself, at age 32, you should end up with $158,000 with your financial advisor. If for the next 10 years, now you're here, you're rocking it, you know, you're actually peaking in your career, not at the peak peaking, and you're starting to get more clients, if you have a book like me, patients if you're a practicing doctor. If you can just save $25,000 per year from 32 years old until you're 42 years old, you should be able to acquire $654,000 with your investment advisor. So I would really like to hear if one day, one or all of you, or some of you in this room, actually could become a millionaire. Because at 42 years old, this is where you start to really peak, and at 52 you peak in your career, like most of us. You should really be able to like put away $35,000 a year. And by the time you're 52, I can assure you, you will be a millionaire. You would have had $1,770,000 with your investment advisor. And how do you do this? How do you do this, really? You do this by starting probably this month. Just think about under $3 a day that you don't spend. And sometimes, you know, you might miss 2 days, so you save $10 in the third day, just to make sure that you really, if you have a goal and you really want to get to where you want to be, you have to be focused, right? So I'm just asking you, if you could start doing this now, I think you will be set for your life. I am one of those fortunate immigrants, you know, who came to the United States and found the true meaning of land of opportunity. So I think it is very easy to take for granted, some of us take it for granted, what this country really has to offer to women like us. But I developed a very strong work ethic while I was growing up in the Philippines. And this experience proved to be invaluable to me, and it actually contributed to my longevity in this industry. And for that, I am really, really very grateful. I hope I can be an inspiration to some of you today. Whatever it is that you're going through in life now, whether it is back home or here in school, I want you to know that just like you, I have been there. And I don't want you to allow all of these noises to define actually your future, because you create your own future. You are the only one who can do that. No one can do that for you. So for as long as you have that fire in your stomach like I did, and I continue to have, you should be able to reach for the stars and achieve whatever it is you want in life. So in closing today, I always encourage girls like you to pursue a well-paying career. A career that comes closest to your heart but also pays, in my opinion, is probably the best combination. I believe as women, they often naturally possess skill sets that we have, which is the ability to listen, being patient and nurturing when needed, allow us all to meaningfully engage with people. So I hope today I'm able to enlighten you. I know that the time is really short, so thank you so very much for having me today.
I think we have time for maybe 2 quick questions. Does anybody have any quick questions for a speaker? No? Okay, go ahead.
Does your family still live in the Philippines? Does your family still live in the Philippines?
Yes, they do. I have, for 30 years, I was really just by myself here. Just so you know, it is very, very hard to get even just a tourist visa when you're coming from other third world countries. So I was able to come in here, and this stays here, but I was a mail order bride, and I don't know if you know anything about what being a mail order bride is, but I published myself